got to start thinking in the long term as well as thinking in the short term. So I've got 9 points that I wanted to make very quickly. There were 8, but during the course of this evening, point number 9 appeared. So first of all, just thinking back to the relationships between community organisations and government over decades, not just over the last few months and weeks. Government, central government, has not been good at speaking up for the most marginalised. It has not done it. Every change that has happened as a result of pressure, which has grown from the margins and has gradually built up public support. So the relationship between government and communities is not one in which government can say what society should be like. Government has a vested interest in the status quo. It always has. That's because that's democracy. The majority vote in the status quo. So if you're in the business of social change, then the engagement with democracy and the government needs to be a very active one and a very challenging one, in which there is a constant critique and questioning of what's going on. So let's not allow government to say this is the big society agenda, because a government big society agenda will be an agenda for either doing what has always been done or an agenda for passing responsibility from government to society. Whereas a society-driven agenda will be one in which society says, this is what we want government to be like. This is how we envisage the role of the state, local and central. And so we need to be having those conversations. And that deliberation that John was talking about is absolutely essential to that. Second point is that civil society needs to be able to challenge government, because government does not always act in the interests of the most marginalised. So there is a process of questioning, of challenging, of debate, not just among ourselves, but of standing up to government and saying to government at times, what you are doing is unjust in our view, it's wrong, it's destructive. So that's where the protests against the cuts at the moment come in. And so a big society, a genuinely big society, is one that actually stands up and challenges government. And so a big society in which government sets all the parameters can't do that. And I think that's my critique really of what's coming out of government. I think there are a lot of very well-meaning people actually behind the big society agenda. Whatever you might feel about the cuts and stuff that's going on there are some people who genuinely believe in community empowerment. But I don't think they get the idea that communities cannot be empowered and on high. Third point is that actually there are some good principles in the big society agenda that we need to engage with, and that's why a campaign of opposition is the wrong thing to do. The principle of localism, that decisions should be taken as near as possible to the people they affect, is actually a good principle. I think that's something we need to fight for, not against. The principles of civic engagement and empowerment are ones that we should all support. Co-production, the idea that users should have a say and help to design public services, I think is also a good principle and one worth exploring. So there's good stuff there. Let's not just throw it all out. Let's not let the anger that we feel about some of the things that's going on at the moment stop us being constructive and stop us thinking that would be the wrong thing to do. Fourth thing is that the kind of principles that government is talking about in community organising, the kind of principles that Paolo Freire and Saul Alinsky were coming up with, are actually really useful, and we should make the most of them. What we shouldn't do is think that community organisers are just the people who have a government label on them saying they are community organisers. There are community organisers all over the place. There are hundreds and thousands of community development workers. Sadly, there are fewer and fewer of them all the time, but there are a lot of community development workers who are already putting these principles into action. And so there's nothing wrong with you lot out there saying, we are community organisers and calling yourselves such. You don't need government permission to be a community organiser. Fifth thing is actually we really need a big society to protect ourselves against some of the things that are going on, both within central government and within local government. And let's be clear about this. There are local authorities that are taking decisions at the moment of their own backs that are deeply damaging to civil society, deeply damaging to community organisations. There should be a process of local engagement and discussion there where we challenge some of those decisions and priorities that are being taken by local authorities. And that means getting out and rediscovering local democracy. If your councillor is taking decisions that you don't like, you should be able to vote them out. And frankly, with the turnouts that we see at local elections, that's not too difficult. So we need to start using our votes, using our rights, using the right to protest, using the right to lobby, using the right to turn up at council meetings. If we don't engage, then really we get what's coming to us. Sixth point is that we need a big society in order to build for the future. We need it to build economic and environmental resilience. And again, let's think for the bigger picture, beyond the cuts that's coming at the moment, beyond the welfare reforms. We need to recreate an economy in this country that works. We need to recreate an economy that works in the face of climate change and all that that entails. And much of what it entails is stuff that we do not know and cannot adequately predict. So the government is bad at coming up with the answers to those things. So we need to recreate economic activity, we need to recreate local wealth. We have an economy that is highly dependent on firms that are sourced outside this country who do not pay their taxes in this country or avoid paying as many taxes in this country as they can, who take wealth out rather than put wealth back in. And that I think is the most powerful critique of the private sector at the moment. So we need to be recreating an economy that works for local people, that works for local communities. And I think civil society organisations are going to be key to that. Actually, networking people up, experimenting, exploring new ideas, finding sources of energy and assets, social assets within communities that we can start to build on. And yeah, we are building from a low base. It's not going to be easy because we have allowed power to seep away from localities. So we really need to be reconstructing a lot of this, and that will take time and it will take a lot of energy. Seventh thing is that we need to think in terms of our society, not government society. Big society is our society. We create the parameters for it, we decide the values for it, we argue among ourselves about what that should mean. What do we mean by social justice? What do we mean by equality? Yet there is an important role for central government, which we have been hearing about through what Stuart and Nick and John have been saying. But we need to say our society is for us to create, it's for us to tell our stories, for us to share our views of what we should be doing. And so one thing that we're trying to do, the group of us who've put Big Society in the North together, is start to create a network which we will call our society, which will be a space outside government where we can start to explore these issues, where we can start to share those stories, where we can start to say, here are the things that we want to prioritise, and where we can start to create those networks. We don't have resources, so we're going to do it very slowly, bit by bit, but if anyone is interested in being part of that and getting involved in that, then I think on your evaluation forms today there's a chance to put your name down and we'll be in touch. And we want you to be part of that conversation, because it's not something that half a dozen of us sitting in the back room can do. We don't have the resources and we don't have the energy on our own to do it. So if there's interest out there, we want you to be involved and we want you to help create that agenda. And the eighth point was let's think long term. Change happens at the edges. All social change happens through a process of tension and contest. So let's not be afraid of that. The changes that will make the difference to the world we inhabit in the future, the country we inhabit in the future, will be changes that come from the edges. They will not be changes that are approved by central government. Sometimes they will not be changes that are approved by local government. We need to contest that ground and start standing up for what we value. And again, it's about recreating that sense of value and purpose in a world in which a lot of the things that our predecessors who had those values and purposes, a lot of what they achieved appears to be crumbling. We need to create something that's fit for purpose for the 21st century and rediscovers those values in ways that resonate with our communities and the people that we represent. And the ninth point, which really comes out of something that Nick was saying, is that government wants us to spend more time volunteering and less time watching telly. And my message to some of you is you should spend more time watching telly and less time volunteering. You need to stay sane. It's really, really important in a difficult economic and social situation that you look after yourselves, and particularly that those of you who are activists and involved in your communities don't burn out, because we need your energies and we need your resources, not just for now, not just to protest against cuts now, but to recreate the future in the long term. And so you need to look after yourselves, and you need to be nice to yourselves, and you need to be nice to your families and the people that you care for. It's really, really important. And for some of you, that will mean go home, watch telly, put your feet up, and resist the pressure to volunteer. For some of you, it will mean get off your butts and start doing things. But I think for most of you in this room, you wouldn't be here if you weren't energised and doing stuff already. So take care of yourselves and look after yourselves.